How's it going, everybody? Gunnar here, and today I'm going to kind of freestyle a fly for you guys. And the reason why is because the past week I've posted a few pictures to Instagram, and you're going to see these Chartreuse pink fade to white hackle tails, and you're also going to see this kind of pink fade to white flash tails. Now what these flies are is they are a hidden bulkhead hollow fly or a reverse bulkhead hollow fly. The technique's the same. I don't know what you want to call it, but they're Bob Popovics techniques, and I'm taking Bob Popovics Hollow Fly Technique and his Bulkhead Technique and his reverse Bulkhead Technique and the way he distributes flash, the way he adds hackles, and we're just combining all of these into one really beautiful 360 degree kind of fat bulkhead style pattern, ultra wispy light dimensional tail that is really true. We're going to do the flash tail version, which is like the true illusion of bulk, if you will, and also castability. And so I want to walk you through, Hollow Fly Technique, which is basically doing reverse bucktail. I want to walk you through how to do a reverse bulkhead to finish the fly, to build a really nice bulky three-dimensional silhouette, push water, talk about bucktail spacing so you have a really light sparse fly that's going to breathe and move and not be hard to cast. And so yeah, that's what we're going to do. If you are not familiar with Bob Popovics' work, man, the dude is the GOAT of streamer tying, period. Find his resources. He's got 2 books. They will change your life. They're both fantastic. Fleye Design being the later one focuses more on bucktail work, so if you're into bucktail work, check that out. The earlier one, Pop Flies, is a lot more of like silicone and epoxy work, but it's all useful. It's all amazing. So I'm gonna jump down, get you guys started. Truly, you only need bucktail and Flashabou. I don't want to use the word overdress, but I'm going to stylistically tie this. It's going to be like the full version, if you will. I don't know how else to explain it, but I'm going to counter shade with flash. I'm going to use multiple different tones of flash, multiple different colors of bucktail. We're going to use peacock curl. We're going to use saddle hackle. So I'm going to dress this fly to the 9 because it's kind of fun and they just look absolutely beautiful and stunning. But if you only had bucktail and Flashabou, you're going to have the same silhouette and hydraulics and balance and all that good stuff. So let's jump down and get started. Alright guys, so we're kind of zoomed out a little bit more than normal. Hopefully you can get in and see all the details that you need to learn the pattern, but it's a big fly, and I want you to see the proportions and the angle that I set all my bucktail to, so I have you zoomed out a little bit more than normal. I am coming in with 210 Flymaster Plus in white. I don't care about thread color. You could also use flat wax nylon in 210. You could use 150 GSP. They're all going to do just fine. Although a word of warning, GSP, because it's so slippery, it's a little bit harder to do the accent work with the peacock curl and the saddles and the flash and all that stuff. So a little bit more of a grippier thread's going to do you some good in that regards. But I'm just going to put down a nice decent thread base and get back right here, like in between my hook point and my barb, somewhere in there. You can see I just let my thread hang. You can see where you are. And I'm going to spin this clockwise so that I have a nice round corded thread and I can put a lot of pressure on my bucktail. Now I'm going to come and I'll choose my hair. You can see that this is all missing kind of out of the midsection. That's kind of my favorite place to get the hair. You get way down here, it's going to be nice and hollow. I'm going to save that for kind of the hidden bulkhead area and when I need a true reverse tie, maybe for some bulk and shoulders. So I'm going to come up and take some kind of tip hair here. It's not going to flare as much for most hollow tying. I like to use some hair that's going to have some flare to it, but this will do just fine. And I'm going to clean out the butts. Now the butts, you don't need the shortest hairs when you're doing a hollow fly. You truly want to build, hollow. You don't need all that short hair. So anything that's kind of like halfway and under, just kind of pull that out. You're also going to pull out all that kind of insulative fiber that's not going to allow the hair to flare and compress. And I'm going to tie that in backwards, right? So that all the points are going forwards. My bucktail butts right here at the back are pointed backwards. Now, I just put all that on the top. It's all right on top. And what I'm going to do is, with my thread loose, but I'm going to give some tension. I'm just not pulling on it, but it's my hands on the thread, right? Going to push my thumb into the top, pinch the sides, push the top, pinch the sides, pinch the top, pinch the sides, and then give that a nice straight down pull. Now, every time you do that, so all my hair was, you know, on top of the hook shank like this, and then I pushed it down and around, and then I pinched the sides and then pushed it down and around and pinched the sides and pushed it down and around, and it's always running away from the pressure of your pinch, and so it helps to get a nice even distribution. So it's 360 degrees. The whole fly is going to be built 360 degrees all the way around the hook shank. Now I'm going to wrap a few threads forward, so all of my thread at the forward point is a perfect symmetrical line. I didn't want to catch that and then kind of wrap back and forth, and you go to reverse it and you don't have a nice straight line here for it all to flare around. So I wrapped, you know, a few times forward, a few times back. All of this is done with a lot of thread pressure without hitting your point. You got to be pretty careful there. And because I am fishing for pike and musky, I'm going to tap my thread here with some super glue and wrap that right over that thread base that I just made, just to help protect that and get the maximum durability out of this fly. Now you come in with something called the push tool. This is just a Bic pen that's hollowed out. They also make these really nice hollow fly tools called the Proto John. If you haven't seen these are pretty wicked cool. I always just revert back to the pen. I don't know why. I haven't got used to the Johns good enough yet, but this allows you to perfectly flare all that hair backwards and catch it all. Now what you want to do here is you don't want to bring your thread up and through at an angle because it's going to take hair with it, but you want to bring it through underneath perfectly parallel. You see that? I just went straight to my hook eye, and then I can come up. And all you want is you have all this hair that you're doing backwards, and you want to draw your thread through it in a perfectly straight line and not up and around, because it's going to take hair fibers with it. Then I'm going to start building a cone. Now again, when I kind of mentioned threads, your flat wax, nylon, your Flymaster Plus, those are all going to build cones way quicker. You're going to kind of have a lot better control over the shape of the cone versus your GSP, your gel sponge, your really slick threads. Those aren't going to build cones very easily. Now this first one I'm going to keep not flared very much. It's really just to support my flash and to support some hackles. So this is pretty low, but after this you really need to start trusting the flare, because it's the bucktail that gives the fly movement. When you flare it out, the hydraulic from the head is going to collapse the bucktail, which is moving around your hook shank core. The more flare you give that bucktail, the more life it's going to have. Now you want this to be a nice continuous silhouette. You don't want just, you know, taper down and then a whole, like 90-degree bucktail. We're going to build a continuum, but as we go forward, each stack we're going to increase it so that we have a nice broad-shouldered fly with the hair able to kind of, I'd say, articulate, but move relative to that hook shank placement that it's all tied down to. So really trust the flare and don't be afraid to leave a hollow fly really flared out. Now I'm going to come in with Magnum Flashabou, and I have silver, I have Chartreuse, I think it's called Mint. If you were to find it on a web shop, I think it's called Mint, and then Opal. And I want this to be predominantly silver, so I'm going to take 6 strands of silver, and wait, this is all 52 centimeters, it's 20 inches, so I have full length on my hanks at the moment, and that's important because I'm going to eventually cut that in half, so you need to be aware of that. So I took 6 of my silver, 4 of my Chartreuse, and then I'm going to take like 4 Opal. So it's like 16 strands total. And then I'm going to take all those and cut that in half, effectively doubling all of it. And so we have 10 inches of Flashabou right here, now that I cut that in half. And I'm going to just roll this in my fingers, just however so, and just kind of roll it and preen it out and roll it and preen it out, and I'm just trying to blend all those together. And then I'm going to taper this end, not a lot, just maybe like 2 inches. So if I tie this in right here, I have an 8-inch fly, because this is 10 inches of Flashabou and I got 2 inches sticking out right here. Now what you're going to do is just catch this right on the side with like 2 loose wraps. It's all in one spot. You can see how corded it is. And then just like the bucktail, shove your thumb into it and work it around and pinch it with your fingers and watch it run away from your fingers. Come down here, make sure it's all the way around the hook. And now I have not only perfect distribution of bucktail, 360 degrees, also perfect distribution of flash. And I'm not having to use that rotary function. This isn't a fly that requires you to have, you know, a rotary vise or anything. Granted, when I stack the polar flash later, I will flip the vise upside down, but sorry, I got distracted. But then I'm just going to take my push tool, flip all that backwards, and catch it right on that little kind of thread base that I just made so it doesn't all slide around everywhere. Now this thread base is a perfect little place to add all these kind of accent hackles that I'm talking about. So I'm going to come in with a really long saddle, some grizzly hackles here. So I'm going to do like, let's say 3 of them. And I want to pick, me personally, I'm going to pick basically the thinnest ones that I can find. Because to me, the thicker the hackle, the more water weight you're going to get, and the more not fun it's going to be to cast. And I just want these for accent. I want them for counter shading. I want them to kind of break up that silhouette, maybe a little illusion of barring, although it's not so much, but they just have a unique kind of drift compared to the Flashabou in the water that is really elegant, and it helps break up and counter shade the fly. Now when you pick a really thin hackle, the stem that runs perpendicular to the feathers doesn't really fight you that much, and it doesn't really matter if a really thin hackle's turned on its side or not for this purpose. So I kind of just throw these right on that thread bump, and I don't really care how they're turned or oriented. I do put them all so that the concavity of the feather is turned in towards the fly, but if they don't stay that way, it doesn't really bother me. And then I split that so that I have feathers right on the side and one on top. And then I'm going to come in with some shorter feathers. And this is a grizzly olive. And I'm going to take these grizzly olive feathers and put those so that I have 2 feathers on the sides, one on top, and then I'm going to put them, it doesn't matter, I'm just having fun, right? Put that up top. And then I'm going to, on my bucktail stacks, I'm going to put these olive saddles throughout the fly to counter shade the fly with the help of the peacock roll. Wrap that. Now those saddles are going to help you wrap that back to the bucktail so that I can super glue all that and get a nice solid base that's going to be protected from pike and musky teeth. Now I'm going to walk you through one more time with the hollow fly because I want this to be thorough and complete so you guys know what's going on here. And then we're going to fast forward and jump to the head because the technique just repeats itself and I don't want to bore you guys to death. But this time I'm going to show you guys here. You do not want to overdress these hollow flies. This is not a lot of bucktail. It's if you were to pinch, let's say, a mechanical pencil in your fingers, right? When people talk about pencil thicknesses, they're talking about pinching a pencil. This is like 1/3 of a pencil or less, like maybe 1/4 of a pencil. It's very, very thin, right? And I cleaned out the butts. Gonna cut this perfectly vertical. Put it on my hook and transfer hands here. 3 wraps. It's all the bucktails just right on top, right? And I have loose tension, but I have tension. That's not completely slack. Shove my thumb on top. Pinch the sides, pinch the top, pinch the sides. Nice straight pull down. Come and make sure that you like that it's, distributed evenly. Wrap that thread forward so you have a nice clean thread wall to reverse all the bucktail backwards over. And then wrap back, and I'm going to super glue my thread again. So you just touch your thread with some light glue and then wrap that glue over the base to get it as durable as possible. Come in with your push tool, and what you want to do when you push this back, if you can kind of just plunge it a few times, what you don't want is your hair's all flared up, and sometimes this hair will get pulled over here and this hair gets pulled over here, and you'll get like a dense pocket, but it's because these aren't flaring directly over themselves. So you want to just kind of relax it all so that it all goes directly backwards and it's not crisscrossing on you. You don't want that. So again, my thread's going to come straight up to the hook eye and then onto the shank. And I can just mash this back with my fingers a little bit to soften it. And then build up a perfectly conical cone. And that's one of the tricks to getting a really beautiful hollow fly is your thread cone has to be perfectly circular. And so as you build up this ramp and you go down and up and down and up and down and up, if your bobbin path is not vertical, but it's at an angle, inside, outside, you're going to build an asymmetrical cone and your bucktail is not going to flare symmetrically. So you need to make sure that you have really nice vertical thread path. Your thread is just going perfectly vertical every single time. And obviously you're moving your bobbin back and forth, but you just want to make sure that your cone is perfect, or otherwise this kind of just makes a mess and doesn't look very good. Well, that's one of those consistency things. Now I'm going to come in with Polar Flash, and I'm going to countershade the fly with Polar Flash all the way throughout. Now this is a blend. This is 2011. It's got gold and pink and kind of a dark peacock to it. It's a really beautiful color in the water. Has a lot of depth to it. And I just drape that around my thread 50-50. And kink one side off and one side to the other. Spread it out with your thumbnail a little bit. And get a nice veil. Now what you can see is instead of doing like one big stack in the back and one big stack in the front, you build a continuum of stacks, changing the angle. Each one has just a light dressing of Flashabou on it, and it helps it all to breathe and come alive. If you try to overdress the stacks, it really dampens the livelihood of the bucktail that you could get. So it's important, you know, this is not a lot of Flashabou. It's probably 10 strands or so, doubled over. And when you do that, you know, 4 or 5 times, then you have a really beautiful fly that has Flashabou all the way throughout, top to bottom, front to back, with a really nice kind of continuum of colors and blends. I'm going to do one more white here. You can see I'm just stopping right in front of my bump for my thread. I'm going to hit that with some super glue here. And so I'm going to repeat this process. Actually, we're just going to keep going. I know this video is going to be long. I'm going to skip the fast forward. I'm just going to tie faster and stop articulating everything. But as I get farther up into the fly, I'm going to start adding some of those accents. I'm going to add my saddle hackles and the olive to the back, just like 2 or 3 on a stack. Make sure that super glue is dry. And then I'm going to add some peacock curl on the last 2, and I'll show you what I mean when we get there. But hollow flies don't have to take long. I know the bucktail process is tedious, but they only take so long on YouTube because you guys can't get me to stop talking, which is unfortunate to some degree, but for everybody who's trying to learn for the first time, I hope it is worth listening to me talk the whole time. Just reverse this backwards, plunge it a few times, grab it all, bring your thread straight up through, build a nice perfect cone. If you got to smash that bucktail down, and you can watch how this angle continually increases here. Just get it a little bit fuller, a little bit closer to 90. I have a hard time trusting the flare because I'm just almost like OCD about having everything perfect in the vise, which it's not. It needs to be perfect out of the vise. And I'll show you what I mean when we get to the end, because we're going to take these flies when we finish it and we're going to run it underwater, because a lot of times this bucktail is kind of staticky and the tips stick out perfectly straight, and that's not actually how the fly fishes. It fishes kind of more in a rounded teardrop shape, and if you get your fly wet and hang dry it, it's exactly the shape it'll come to just on its own. Throw that on top right there. Come on underneath. The color of the underneath Flashabou, which I forgot to mention, is 2004. It's kind of like an opal-y pink color. It's really good looking. So right now I'm going to come in with, I'm just going to pick 2 light saddle hackles in this grizzly olive color. Putting them way down in that sloppany section allows me to get a nice controlled lay to my feather, so I can put it up kind of on those 45-degree angles. Where'd my other feather go? Just adding those 2 right up here in the back. It's all the hackles kind of bleeding into each other. And this is where I'm going to start my color combo fade. So I did 3 white. I'm going to do 2 pink and then a pink chartreuse blend here. I'm going to come in with my pink now. So I'm just trying to spare you guys from making you watch me tie this fly for 35 minutes or whatever it's going to take. So what I've done, I told you we were splitting this up into 6 hollow ties, right? And we've done 3 so far in white. And this is the 4th one. And the last 2 are going to be the reverse bulkhead. So I want to kind of jump in here. And so we've done white, all of the flash, hackles, white, flash with hackles. Now we came into the pink. And I'm going to hit this with flash again, the polar flash that's blended. This time I'm going to cut the polar flash, a little bit shorter, like take 2 inches off the top there, just so the Flashabou now is also tapered along with the bucktail and the length and the hackles, and everything is always tapered and bleeding into itself. Get a nice spread to that, wrap that up the back. And this is where I'm going to interject some peacock curl. So I'm going to do 2 layers of peacock curl, and this first layer is going to be quite long. I'm going to select the longest peacock curls I can find, which most peacock curl assortments are pretty well done. I'll show you guys what I mean here. But I'm going to come in here, get just a normal peacock curl, and I'm going to pull out. You don't want to pull, if you pull too many fibers, you'll just break the tip. But that's like 5 or 6 right there. Get 5 or 6 more. So I have, 10, maybe 12, 13, 14. You can go pretty dense with this. It counter shades and blends with the bucktail really, really elegantly. It looks really nice. So I have my longest fibers here. What I'm going to do is cut them flush, hit them on the side of my hook and let the thread torque. And you can aid it a little bit and bring it up to the top. Hit another wrap on that and then just walk it around, finger placement. And make sure you got a nice spread to all the peacocks so it's just perfectly veiling the back there. I'm going to wrap my thread up onto that base there that I already made. And we're going to start right here. It's going to be our first reverse bulkhead tie. I'm going to hit all this with some super glue. And hopefully you guys can see all right. I intentionally didn't turn my tying lamp on so that I could, so that you guys aren't overexposed this entire time. Now when you get up towards here, I'm going to start using this base hair. And the whole purpose is when you do a hidden bulkhead, as you're going to see, it's still a hollow tie. I'm not changing anything about the hollow tie other than I'm going to leave the butts in, and I'm going to leave the butts long so that they build a nice thick rounded head and collar that's going to push water and really shape the fly into a teardrop here. And so you want that hollowness in the hair so that the bucktail butts flare and they don't collapse all the work that we just did here. So I'm going to leave these like 1 inch long coming out the back. Catch that with my 3 turns here. You can see just how long those butts are. And as I push this around and distribute that, make sure that's really nice and even there. Boom, you want all that flare. That flare is what you want in that hair. And now I don't want to use super glue here and trap all this down. I'm going to trust my thread durability to the musky teeth here and force all of that back. So now when we're reverse tying this, we're reverse tying this over top of the butts, and that's how you do a hidden or reverse bulkhead, if you're familiar with the bulkhead technique. And now something that I'm going to do, and it might look crazy on camera at first, but leave this full. You can see there's even a little gap between my previous stack and this stack that kind of looks naked or undressed or weird. And that's because my next bucktail butts are going to force this back a little bit. So you don't want to collapse that to its true shape, or else you're going to over collapse it, and it's not actually going to be what you want. Now in this one I'm going to take, again, more peacock here. Let's say another 15 strands, but I'm going to choose shorter fibers that bleed into the longer fibers. Again, just building taper throughout the entire fly. I'm going to catch those right on the top here. Technically I caught them on the side and let my thread rotation bring them up to the top. And then I'm going to wrap those back right up to that bucktail and back down again. And then I'm going to make a little thread valley there and hit that with some super glue. And then this last one, because I can't help myself, you guys, it's so much fun to, I mean, this is what freestyling's all about, man. I'm going to come in with Chartreuse here. And not a lot, man. I'm going to take like 15 strands of Chartreuse here. And then I'm going to take my pink and I'm going to blend the two together in my hand to make this finishing hidden bulkhead. So I'm going to clean out the butts. The way you want to do this, and it's a great way to build finger dexterity, but you lay it in your hand flat, pinching the tips. The tips are right here in my hand. And I'm just going to pull out the butts and then re-stack it. Pull out the butts and re-stack it. And every time I put it back, I pinch it with my thumbs and realign the tips. Every 2 or 3, you just rotate the bundle and rotate the bundle. That way you're always getting a slightly different angle. And you'll feel the burn in your hand and your thumb. It's a very uncomfortable thing to do, but it helps your material manipulation like crazy. Then I'm going to take this and stack these button down in my hand here so that the butts are all close to the same length. And I'm just dropping that on my hand and using my fingers like a hair stacker. That's all I'm doing. Just hand stacking it. Now if you got some that didn't cooperate, it's not a big deal, but I'm going to spin my thread again so it's nice and round. I'm going to line these bucktail butts up so they're as long, or about 1 inch, the same as it was on the previous stack. Catch that with 3 exact precise turns. Shove that down. Pinch it's really tricky to kind of get the hair even around the hook eye, so you want to pinch this one a few times. Really let that pressure help distribute it. And then pull straight down and see, make sure you like how it's distributed. And hit that with your push tool. And we can use the hook eye now because we have this nice wide gaped hook eye on this Ahrex 4/0 TP610 here, and use that to help build your thread base. And again, especially at the hook eye, you want to make sure that you have a perfectly circular thread base. It's one of the easiest places to kind of not build a circular one, and it's the most noticeable when you're doing these kind of bulkhead style flies because it'll all lay down in a really weird angle. Then I'm going to finish that off. You know, if you're one of those guys who wants that thread colored up chartreuse or pink or something like that, feel free. I'm just going to hit it with super glue here. So that is the Freestyle reverse bulkhead flash tail hollow fly. And what I want you guys to see here is I'm going to take this into my mechanical room because I got a sink in there, and I'm going to get this wet and let this thing hang dry. And you can see just how bulky that is. Like, that should look a little bit crazy to you, right? But the moment you get this wet, the moment you hang dry this, you take down all that kind of flare, that static, everything that's going on there, and it's all going to make the most perfect little teardrop that you've ever seen. But you have all that density right here at the head, all that hidden bulk right at the head. And something that's really cool, if you ever tie really long bucktail flies like this on heavy wire hooks, a lot of times they dive head first. But one of the things that I'm so drawn to about the bulkhead and the hidden bulkheads is you add all of this water resistance and buoyancy at the hook eye. And it's not so much, it's not so dense that the fly floats or the fly corks up or anything. You do it nice and sparse, but you get this perfectly suspending fly, and it'll even fight your sinking line a little bit and have just the perfect glide and fall and hover, and it catches current, and it's really high profile. Currents push the fly around when you're fishing it in a river, cross current and everything. But it's one of the coolest, most lively things you've ever seen in the water. So I'm gonna run and get this wet and show you the finished product here. That right there is your finished reverse bulkhead hollow flash tail deceiver. Pretty good looking, if I do say so myself. I'm gonna take some stills here and throw them up at the end of the video for you guys, just so I can get the right angle with my camera lens. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Tie some up, stick some pigs. See you next time.